With the way things are currently unfolding between the Sussexes and King Charles, the idea of everyone casually bumping into each other at the Invictus Games, sharing a warm hug and posing for a cheerful group photo feels about as realistic as Buckingham Palace installing a drive-through. The relationship, if we're being honest, is less strained and more microwaved leftovers forgotten at the back of the fridge. There's history there, there's emotion there, but nobody is quite sure how safe it is to open the container anymore. And yet, just when the narrative feels locked in place, along comes a source whispering that there might still be two very small, very powerful reasons capable of nudging the king into action. Not medals, not ceremony, not optics, not even the Invictus Games themselves, but two children with California accents and royal bloodlines, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. Now, let's pause here, because this is where the story gets both fascinating and quietly ironic. For years, we've been told that protocol, tradition, duty and the crown come before everything else. But suddenly, insiders are suggesting that the most effective diplomatic strategy left on the table isn't a formal invitation embossed with gold leaf or a carefully worded palace statement, but the simple human pull of being a grandfather. According to a source speaking to Radar Online, King Charles is reportedly desperate to meet his grandchildren, and if that word doesn't raise eyebrows, it should. Desperate is not the language of stiff upper lips and ceremonial distance. Desperate is emotional. Desperate is human. Desperate is the sound of the crown quietly slipping off its pedestal and revealing the man underneath. What makes this even more intriguing is that this admission comes alongside reports of what's being described as a great deal of hostility within Charles's inner circle. And let's be clear, when royal insiders talk about hostility, they don't mean raised voices and slammed doors. They mean icy pauses, strategic silences, carefully leaked briefings, and the kind of passive resistance that could win Olympic gold if it were ever introduced as a sport. The inner circle, by all accounts, is not exactly lining up to roll out the red carpet for the Sussexes. If anything, they're standing guard, clipboards in hand, muttering about precedent, optics, and what message this would send. And yet, even within that fortress of resistance, the source claims there is one natural and effective approach left. Not lawsuits, not public appeals, not Netflix documentaries, but the children. Archie and Lilibet, who didn't ask to be born into this soap opera, have somehow become the emotional ace card. The reasoning, according to the source, is almost disarmingly simple. While it's unlikely the king would take on any formal role connected to the Invictus Games, there is a genuine possibility that he would agree to see Harry and his grandchildren. And here's the key part. That scenario would almost certainly involve a meeting with Meghan as well. Now imagine the palace aides reading that sentence and collectively clutching their pearls, because that's the part no one wants to say out loud. You can't see the grandchildren without seeing their mother. They are a package deal. There is no separate entrance for royal offspring only, no velvet rope dividing bloodline from parent. And suddenly, the supposed pressure point isn't just about grandchildren, it's about acknowledging the full family unit that Harry and Meghan have built, far from palace corridors and tabloid briefings. The source goes even further, admitting that this is the only pressure point worth holding on to hope for. Only, not one of many, not a backup option, the single factor. And that's where the narrative shifts from royal drama into something almost quietly tragic. Because when someone says that seeing his grandchildren is the single factor that could compel Charles to act in a way he otherwise would not, what they're really saying is that every other bridge has been allowed to burn. Titles, loyalty, shared history, institutional legacy. All of it apparently wasn't enough. It's the children, the next generation, who hold the remaining leverage. And let's talk about that pull for a moment. Because no matter how ornate the crown, no matter how rehearsed the ceremony, no matter how many anthems are played, family has a way of sneaking past defences. The source describes it plainly. No matter how complicated or awkward it might be from a royal or public standpoint, that personal bond exerts a powerful pull on him. That's not strategy, that's emotion. That's the kind of truth palace walls can't completely insulate against. From a humorous standpoint, the irony here is almost poetic. The monarchy, an institution built on centuries of control, is being gently cornered by toddlers with bedtime routines and sticky fingers. All the advisors in the world can draft memos, but none of them can out-logic a grandfather who wants to know what his grandchildren sound like when they laugh, what books they like, whether Archie still asks too many questions, and whether Lilibet inherited that Windsor red hair. The crown may rule nations, but it has never been particularly successful at ruling feelings. And this is where Harry and Meghan's position becomes quietly fascinating. Because, contrary to the usual tabloid framing, this isn't about weaponizing children, it's about reality. Children change dynamics, whether anyone likes it or not. They force adults to confront the future, instead of endlessly litigating the past. And the fact that insiders are acknowledging this tells us something important. Beneath the hostility, beneath the briefings, beneath the cold shoulders, there is still an unresolved emotional story playing out behind the scenes. It also reframes the Invictus Games themselves. What began as a question of whether King Charles would attend or accept an invitation now feels secondary. The games may be the backdrop, but they're not the main plot. The real question isn't, will the king show up? But what kind of grandfather does he want to be remembered as? Because history has a way of editing out palace protocol and highlighting personal choices. One day, the footnotes won't care about who attended which ceremony, but they will remember whether a man chose connection over distance when the opportunity still existed. And let's not ignore the quiet strength of Meghan in this scenario. The source openly admits that any meeting with the grandchildren would almost certainly involve her. That's not a concession, it's an acknowledgement. Despite years of hostile coverage, despite relentless attempts to paint her as peripheral or problematic, she remains central to the family reality. You don't get to rewrite that without rewriting the truth. And the fact that even insiders concede this speaks volumes about how the narrative has shifted, whether the palace likes it or not. There's also something almost darkly funny about the timing of all this. For years, critics accused Harry and Meghan of being disruptive, simply by existing on their own terms. And now the suggestion is that the very independence they were criticised for has created the only scenario capable of drawing the king closer. Distance, paradoxically, has made connection more valuable. Absence has sharpened longing. And the grandchildren, growing up outside the royal bubble, have become symbols of both loss and possibility. From a public standpoint, this puts King Charles in an uncomfortable but revealing position. Any move toward reconciliation will be scrutinised. Any meeting will be analysed. Any photograph, if it ever exists, will be dissected down to the pixel. But the source makes it clear that public optics may ultimately lose to private emotion. Because when someone reaches a stage in life where legacy matters, the question stops being, how will this look? And starts being, what will this mean? And perhaps that's why this story resonates so strongly. It strips away the pomp and leaves us with something recognizably human. A father and son estranged. A grandmother gone too soon to play mediator. A grandfather standing at the intersection of duty and desire. And two children who, without saying a word, have become the quiet centre of gravity pulling everyone closer, whether they admit it or not. In the end, whether King Charles ever attends the Invictus Games may turn out to be footnote material. What will matter more is whether he allows himself to step out from behind the institution, even briefly, and meet his grandchildren where they are. Not where protocol dictates, not where advisors are comfortable, but where life has placed them. Because crowns may be inherited, but relationships are chosen. And right now, according to those closest to the situation, the children are the last open door in a house full of locked rooms. And if there's one thing history has taught us, it's that the moments we think are small, quiet meetings, private decisions, unpublicized choices, often end up being the ones that define everything that comes after.